everybody. My name is Annick Spaans. I'm working for the ZLTO in the Netherlands. And from ZLTO as a project manager, I'm working for the project's roadmap and project NetPoulSafe, in which we are using a coaching methodology in farms. And this webinar, I will present it to you together with Arthi Amalraj. She is from Ghent University, a PhD student, and she is also involved in a NetPoulSafe project. So together we would like to explain our experiences with the coaching methodology from the project to you. What are the aims of this session? First of all, we would like to explain the coaching methodology to you. And like I said, we would like to share our experiences from the projects about the coaching methodology. Together, we would like to try out the first steps of the coaching methodology, and we will use breakout rooms for this at the end of the session. And during these breakout rooms as well, we would like to exchange experiences and thoughts about the coaching methodology. So before I start about the coaching methodology itself, I would like to quickly introduce the different projects to you. Project Roadmap is a social science-driven multi-actor project in which we foster transitions towards prudent antimicrobial usage. And we are doing this as a main activity with the aid of Living Labs. And with Living Labs, we are trying to co-develop strategies and to encourage prudent AMU. In the project, we have established 12 different Living Labs in 8 different countries and 3 different sectors in the cattle, the poultry, and the pig sector, in which we try to co-create together with as many as possible different kind of stakeholders to co-create locally adapted strategies. And for example, in the Netherlands and Belgium, these strategies were the coaching methodologies. So that was the innovation tested in the Netherlands and Belgium. So that's how the coaching methodology is related to the roadmap project. In Project NetPoulSafe, we have also tested the coaching methodology. And in this project, we are focused on the poultry sector. In the NetPoulSafe project, which is a thematic network, we try to improve biosecurity compliance by supporting measures. And one of these supporting measures is coaching. And these supportive measures, we try to test them, to share them, and disseminate them in the thematic network. And with the coaching, we have tested it on various countries in different pilot farms. Okay, then we are going further to the explanation of coaching. I would like to start with this image, as it clearly explains what it is about. You see the coach or the facilitators at the table around with the farmer, the feed advisor, and the veterinarian. And together they are working on a farm-specific action plan. The farmer, together with his team, with the feed advisor and the veterinarian, they're working on the technical input of the action plan, while the coach or the facilitator is guiding the process. So he is trying to steer the process towards a good action plan with a good plan do check act methodology, which I will explain later. And he is not a content expert, while the others are. And in the end, the farmer is a leading person in deciding which action plan will be implemented on the farm. Yeah, together everyone achieves more. That is, I think, a main goal that you need to consider when you start coaching. Creating a farm health team makes more than just putting a farmer, a veterinarian, and a feed advisor around the table, because it requires a call upon an intrinsic motivation and that of the others to commit to the team effort of improving the farm and its practices. You will become a team with one vision, and then the teamwork gets defined. So in these 2 projects, we are working on coaching, and we think that this is an important measure because reducing AMU is more than just applying animal health measures. It requires a knowledge-intensive process. It needs rethinking farm-specific management practices and farm organization. But most importantly, you need to break routines and change behavior and change perceptions and presumption in a farmer. This is a quite challenging part of being a coach, to try to break these routines and behavior. When you visit a farm, you can go on a farm being an advisor or a coach. And there's a difference in the approach you need to take when you start to help a farmer. When you are advising, the farmer comes with a problem to you and you as an advisor in the end will create a solution. And you see there's a difference in the arrows between the advising and the coaching part. When you start coaching, together with the farmer, you create together a solution. And in the end, the solution comes from the farmer itself. So that's the difference. Here, these differences are a bit more elaborated. You see, both advising and coaching is future-oriented, but advising can be a one-time meeting, while in coaching, it is a process, it's a trajectory. And in advising, the goal is to increase knowledge and expertise of the client, while in coaching, you need to increase self-confidence, problem-solving ability, and motivation of the client. In advising, the counselor guides the direction of the solution by giving advice, while with coaching, the client steers solution direction by themselves, by thinking of solutions by himself. So in coaching, the advisor or the helper and the farmer has an equal relationship, while in advising, this is not the case. What is the role of the coach? It's very important that you observe without judgment, opinions, or assumption, and you need to ask open questions focused on future perspectives and farmer context. And one of the main important things of being a coach is that you need to be focused on providing knowledge by the others, outlining different options and scenarios, and you need to motivate and stimulate all different people that are around the table to bring in their knowledge and stimulating to have a good and deep discussion. As a coach, you need to facilitate the conversation. You need to ensure that the plan, do, check, act methodology is applied well. And most important of all, you are not a content expert. So now you have some background information about what's the difference between advising and coaching, and what are the main important things you need to consider when you start coaching. But how are you going to do it? We have a course of actions, and you always start with a farm intake in which you start to assess the ADKAR and the biocheck. And Arthi Amalraj will explain it to you after this slide. And after this farm intake, you will start with the plan, do, check, act methodology, which I will explain to you after the presentation of Arthi. And after this plan, do, check, act methodology, you always end with the biocheck and ADKAR assessment again, in order to assess the impact of the coaching methodology. So now I give the floor to Arthi to present her slides about the biocheck and the ADKAR.
Thank you, Annick. I will share my screen. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arthi Amalraj. I'm a PhD student, and I'm also the representative from Belgium for Project NetPoulSafe. So as Annick said, for the project, we made some digital tools which would enable us to measure the biosecurity levels in poultry farms. And that tool is what we call the biocheck.ugent scoring system. It is a risk-based scoring system that allows you to measure the biosecurity level in poultry farms. And this system was developed for the different poultry species, both indoor and outdoor. And earlier it already existed for broiler and layers, but then based on the existing ones, we adapted and made new tools for turkeys, breeders, ducks, and free-range broiler and layer poultry. So the scoring system allows you to measure biosecurity in your farm, and then with the results that you get, you're able to compare one farm with the world average. And once you know the status of the farm and the weaknesses in a farm, you're able to make intervention plans that is very, very specific to the farm. So these tools are available on the website in English, in several European languages, and also in many Asian languages. So the principle of this tool is that it works on two principles. One is external biosecurity, and the other is internal. So external is the bio-exclusion, which means that you want to avoid entry of pathogens into the farm. And internal biosecurity is when you want to contain the microbes inside the farm and you want to prevent the cross-contamination that happens from one house to another. So the tool is nothing but it's a questionnaire with about 100 questions, and each question will describe an important aspect of biosecurity, and but that biosecurity measure is important for preventing disease transmission. Based on the principles of bio-exclusion and bio-containment, the questionnaire also is divided into two parts, external and internal categories. And within these categories, we also have the different subcategories. So the questions are grouped into these subcategories for the ease of scoring. Just to give you an idea on how the questions are formed in the questionnaire. So let's speak about location. So there's a question on the location. So we are asking, how far is the nearest farm or nearest poultry industry from your given farm? And then there will be multiple answer options. So the ideal one is the one in the blue, which means that it is a low risk for the farm and it will get full points. Then there will be some intermediary options that are not high risk factors for the farm, but there is a possibility that they can be somehow a risk factor and they will gain about half the points. And there will be another answer option which is not very optimal for any kind of farms, and they are considered to be very, very high risk factors. This is because we never want farms in close proximity to each other. This can also include hobby poultry because there's a lot of airborne transmission, and they can also be vehicles that are using the same route for visiting all these farms. They can be vehicles transporting live animals, carcasses, feed. So all these vehicles are going to be using the same route, and we don't want farms to be near each other. So the questions are framed more or less in this aspect. So this table here is just to give you an idea on how the scoring system works. So the questions here belongs to the subcategory organization and supply of materials. And the questions here were they were listed based on poultry experts' feedback. And each of these questions were given a weight factor, and these weight factors were also set or assigned by a group of poultry experts that we contacted a year ago. So the questions, and then there are answers. So answers will be best answers, there'll be the worst answers, and then there'll be intermediary answers. So on answering the questions, the farmer doesn't just get 0 points or complete 1 point, but because of the weight factor, the farmer will get a score that will be a weighted score rather than just 0 or 1. It'll be a weighted score, and these weights are assigned based on the importance of the questions or the importance of the measure in being a risk factor. So I just highlighted here, for instance, we are asking about wheel disinfection. And if the answer is yes, they will disinfect, then the farmer will get 14 points. And if it's no, they will get 0 points. In some conditions, it's possible that they do wheel disinfection only when there is an outbreak or only when there is it's becoming mandatory from the government. In that case, maybe more or less 50% points will be allotted. So the entire system weights on weighted base, and at the end, the farmer, each question will be a weighted score. Each subcategory will have a weighted score, and then the final score of external is calculated separately and internal is calculated separately, and then the mean of these two will become the total score of the farm. There are also several conditional questions in the questionnaire, which means that when you skip a certain question, you may gain points. Sometimes when you skip a certain question, you may also lose points. An ideal example will be here. So we ask about cleaning and disinfection of the farms. And then the options that this question has is about wet cleaning and dry cleaning, whether if it's only dry cleaning or whether it's no cleaning at all. I would be happy if no farms would select no cleaning. So it's mostly the best option will be wet and dry cleaning. But it's possible that some farmers prefer to do just dry cleaning. So when you answer wet and dry cleaning as the answer option, you have two following questions. So one question is soaking being done? So do you put a lot of water, spray a lot of water and give some time for soaking? And also another question that follows will be, do you add soap or detergent to the wet cleaning process? So when on answering question 96, you also answer question 97 and 98, and then you get the corresponding points. So if in case you answer just dry cleaning, the following questions do not appear. And you don't only lose points for question 96, but you also lose points for question 97 and 98. So this questionnaire or tool is made in such a way that we don't superficially ask questions about whether it's just done or not, but we go a little deep inside and on asking about whether it's done in the right way or not. Hence, by answering the questions in the questionnaire, you get scores, and the scores can range somewhere between 0 to 100, 0 being complete lack of biosecurity and 100 being complete application of biosecurity. So when you finish the online questionnaire, a report will be generated, and the report will look like this. It's a table, so you have the different subcategories, and then you have your score. Your score is the farm score, and your farm score will be benchmarked against the world average. So the scores that are highlighted in red indicate that biosecurity is poor, and these are the weak areas that need intervention. Sometimes you'll also have national average. So in a country, if a certain species, for example, if broiler farms, for example, you say you have filled the survey more than 40 times, if 40 farms have used the tool, then it's possible for you to have the world average, and your farm score will be compared to the world average and the national average. The report is also given in the form of a visual representation, like a spider plot, and the bigger blue areas here means better biosecurity compliance. And the alphabets in the spider plot will correspond to the alphabet that is given to each subcategory. So the database of the bioject.ugent will have this worldwide database, which means it has a map, and in this map, there's a clear indication with the colors. So you have the complete white color, which means the tool is not being used, whereas the bluish to the purple colors means the tool has been used worldwide. So the darker the color is, means more number of farms have been using BioCheck. Example, in Belgium, about 200 farms have used 200 broiler farms in Belgium have used the BioCheck tool to evaluate the farm biosecurity status. In Sweden, about 17 farms have used the turkey surveys. And in France, about 5 farms have used the duck surveys. This wide difference from 5 farms to 200 farms is because the broilers, like I said before, has been in use for quite some time, for about more than 5 years now. However, the new tools were launched only last year in August. So we only see comparatively very few farms that have filled the BioCheck for ducks, breeders, turkeys, and then the free range. The table here is just to give you an overview of the database that exists in the website. And we can clearly see that external biosecurity has always been lower than internal biosecurity, which means that there are so many risk factors that can enter a farm from the outside, and it needs more attention. So this is a table which is not in the database, but it's just to give you an idea of if more than 40 farms or more than 40 entries are there for each country, how the database would look. So you'll have the world average, and then you'll also have country-specific averages. Here, however, I would like you to not consider the external score of Netherlands and Hungary, because there's underrepresentation of farms. There are very few farms, so it may look like external is scores for external is more than internal, but it's not true because of the underrepresentation of the farms. So when you measure biosecurity, you're able to identify the weaknesses in a farm, and then you're able to make plans to improve biosecurity. When you improve biosecurity, you minimize the exposure of the animals or the birds to pathogens. And by doing so, as a consequence, we tend to use less antimicrobials or less medication in feed and also for treatment. So this is our team from Belgium who was involved in the development of the tool. And yes, I will move forward to my next presentation about the ATCAR. So the ATCAR is a livestock adapted scoring system. It's not as complicated as the BioCheck. It's a very simple scoring system. And it's used to assess the farmer's attitude or perspective towards biosecurity. So this is a scoring that is done when you meet the farmer. You ask him couple of questions, very basic questions like, what do you think about biosecurity, and if there were any recent problems in the farm and how biosecurity helped him or how he dealt with the problem. So things like that. So you have a general conversation with the farmer, and from his response, from his body language, from his attitude, from his tone of voice, and a lot of answers, or from his feedback, you understand his perception towards biosecurity. And by knowing this perception, you can start your coaching process from then onwards. And the ATKAR is based on 5 elements: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So I will talk about each element in a different slide. Regarding the scoring as well, the scoring for this assessment will be from 1 to 5, 1 being the least and 5 being the best score. So a farmer with very good perspective will have 5 score. A farmer is least interested will have a score of 1. So awareness component, it means the farmer's understanding that biosecurity can prevent a lot of risks. So it means that he has awareness about both external and internal biosecurity. So such farmers who don't score well, they are the ones who have missed a lot of information that's given to them. They are not aware that improving biosecurity can reduce risk in his farm. Sometimes they are aware of the problem, but they are in complete denial that in spite of making a lot of changes, they've not seen any improvement. So they're in complete denial that biosecurity has any effects. And then there is another group of farmers who are aware of biosecurity, but then they say that whatever we do, disease will occur and there's no way that we can avoid it. So that's another group of farmers who have that tendency to think in that direction. And there are very good farmers who are aware of the problem and they accept that some change is required. And there are also another set of farmers who are aware of the problems, who are aware of the biosecurity elements that can improve the problem. And they are already making an attempt to control risk factors on the farm. So the desired element, it means the willingness or the motivation of the farmers to follow a certain measure. Farmer may say that this is not my problem, I am not concerned with this. I will like to give an example. For instance, when we ask about wheel disinfection, the farmer is like, the wheels of the feed company, the trucks, they have to be disinfected by the feed companies. I don't have to do it. That's not my job. So there are farmers who have this attitude. Sometimes a farmer is not inclined to make any change because a lot of his neighbors are also not inclined to change. So he will never change unless his neighboring farms also implement a certain change. Sometimes the farmer would like to improve, but he wants to do it very, very slowly, which means that he doesn't want to see a very drastic change in improvement. For him, a very small change is enough. And then there are good farmers who want to improve, who would like to improve, who like to make a change, but then there's something that is not letting them do it. This can be financial constraints, this can be some environmental regulations, like for instance, we ask farmers to have a cemented or a concrete platform just outside the farm so that you can control rodent, you can control problems with soil, contaminating the farm. But then there are some environmental regulations that don't allow you to concrete the entire surface around the farm. And then there are farmers who have the desire and who are also trying to save some money or put some investment into bringing the change. But the next element will be about knowledge. So knowledge is when the farmer has skills to actually execute the biosecurity implementation. Sometimes farmers who score low are those who are not having this knowledge, they don't have the skill, and they're not able to make an action plan with the problems that they are facing. Sometimes they don't understand what kind of risks match with the problems that are actually existing in the farm. Sometimes farmers who score poor are the ones where the information is available, they have the skills, but they don't have someone to guide them in the right direction to plan on how or the steps on execution. For example, I would say that for boot disinfection, you have the mats, or you have a small tub with water where your boots can be dipped. So these boot dips have disinfectant water. It's possible that the farmer knows that a boot disinfection is good for the farm, but he doesn't know the concentration of the disinfectant that has to be added in the water, or he doesn't know that on a timely basis this has to be changed. And sometimes disinfectant are heat sensitive, so when they are when they are for a long period on the outside at the gate or at the entrance of the farm, more sunlight or more heat can make them less effective. So these are things that they know it has to be done, but they don't know the right things that they need to follow to execute it in the right way. And then there are good farmers where information is available, they are knowledgeable, they know the problem, they know the risk factors, but all they need is a little more support from the side of the veterinarians or the feed companies. And there are very good farmers who already know the problem, they know the solution, and they've already adapted to the action plan, or they've already implementing a lot of measures to stop or control problems. The last element that we talk about will be the ability to do it. So there will be farmers who will score very poorly. They do not want to change. They're always having some issue or the other. They find obstacles to just not follow the action plan. And there are farmers who think that they would like to follow just a few of the solutions that we give. So say we have listed about 6 solutions, but they will not follow the first 3 ones, which are the most important, but they would rather prefer to follow something that is easier for them to perform. And then there are other set of farmers who also score poor because they know the issues, they do want to bring a change, but they do not want to do it immediately in the farm which is already present, but they're planning to do it on a long-term basis in a new construction site. So there are some measures in a farm that cannot be improvised immediately, because it can be reconstruction work in the farm, like for example making a clean and a dirty road in a farm. It's not possible to build it immediately. So they are all long-term solutions, and farmers may tend to keep it for later. And then there are good farmers who would be inclined to make the change, who will be inclined to follow a certain measure, and the only thing that is blocking them is time and money. Whereas the very good farmers, they've already using a lot of digital tools. They're also using a lot of, for example, they also use the biocheck to help them understand where they stand, and they're also investing some money. They're trying to follow courses, and they're also interested in letting the workers in the farm also follow these courses. So they're more interested in how to bring development. So this ability in such farmers will score high. So in the beginning, when you perform ATKAR, you only look for these 4 elements. And after coaching, when you do the ATKAR for the second time, you also score for the element reinforcement. Reinforcement is nothing but you just check about the sustainability of the farmer. Have they sustained throughout the journey of the coaching to sustain a change that you have mentioned in your action plan. So this was a study that was done a few years ago, and about 15 poultry farmers were interviewed, and the ATKAR scores were analyzed. So we found that in this study, about 10 farmers were scoring low for awareness. About 8 of them had low scores for desire. About 11 farmers scored very low for knowledge and ability. And from the entire study, what they understood was, when there is low knowledge or low ability, the possibility to bring a change was much easier, or the possibility to coach was much easier. Whereas when awareness and desire were lacking, then the inclination to change or the motivation was very difficult to coach these farmers and to bring a overall change. So that is it about ATKAR. Thank you for your time and attention. And I think to know more on coaching, I give the floor to Annick.
So Arthi just explained about the biocheck and the ATCAR, which we are doing at the farm intake. And after this, we set the first meeting together with the farmer, the veterinarian, and the feed advisor to start with the real coaching session. So with the plan, do, check, act methodology. And in this first meeting, you start with your diagnosis, which you, and then you will establish an action plan. Then you start with the implementation phase. So you start to implement the actions, and then you will continue with some follow-up meetings to evaluate and act on the action plan you have implemented. And if needed, you adjust or you create follow-up actions based on what has been discussed during the meetings. And as Arthi explained, you always end with the final biocheck and ATCAR in order to assess the impact of the coaching methodology. In the following slides, I will elaborate a bit more on the different steps of the coaching methodology. So the first step of the coaching session is always that you start to brainstorm. And you can do this, for example, with the aid of a brain map. And this focuses on listing and determining goals and points of improvement. So you see the yellow circle in the middle, what's it about? And in this situation, it is about how to reduce antimicrobial usage. And there are many themes related to this issue. For example, like Arthi explained, you have internal biosecurity, you have external biosecurity, but it can also go about housing, about how to manage your personnel, about vaccination, and so on. So you start to focus on all the different kind of themes that are related with your issue before you start going into detail on the different themes, because it's quite common that you already start from the beginning to discuss very deeply content-wise into a certain theme, while it is important to start looking at the situation in a broad perspective in order to look at the different kind of themes that are related to the issue. Then the following step is to prioritize the different themes. What is the most important or the most easiest maybe theme to pick up at this moment? Because if you decide to do multiple themes at one time, it will be too much, and it will not be easy to handle all different kind of themes at one time. You need to do it. You need to start by one and go for the other at another time. So you need to define one theme, and then you need to create a SMART goal of it. Here you can see the different steps again. So plan, do, check, act. And in the planning phase, you start with creating the SMART goal. So what is a SMART goal? A SMART goal is a goal which is specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time specific. So it needs to be clear what you want to achieve, who are involved, and what part of the goals are essential. It needs to be measurable. So for example, how many or a certain percentage that needs to be reduced. It needs to be acceptable. So all those involved need to be supported by the goal. It needs to be feasible, and it also needs to be time specific. So you need to define a certain end time or a starting date into your goal. So it will be a quite elaborated sentence with all these different elements included. Here you see two examples of it, and I will go through the first example for you. So the example is, in the next year, the percentage of condemned birds in the slaughterhouse needs to lower from 3% to 1.5% by focusing on the prevention of enterococci infections and improved water quality. And in this example, you'll find all the different elements of a SMART goal back, because regarding specific, the target to improve condemned birds is clearly mentioned. It's also measurable because there is a percentage mentioned. It is acceptable because preventive measures against enterococci are most likely acceptable ways to work on this goal. It's also a realistic target, and it is time bound because the time frame is specifically set to 1 year. And well, there's also another example, but you can look at it later on. Then if you have defined your SMART goal, we go further with the do step. So you have created your action plan, and then in the end, you need to implement it. So it needs to be clear who is doing what, when, and why. And who can be a different person than the one who is at the table. Because, for example, a farmer can have an action plan to implement more disinfection pumps at each barn, but maybe the farm worker is responsible for it. So that is the difference between the project solver and the project owner. And this figure helps to write down clearly who is doing what, when, and why. Well, after you have implemented your actions, you set a certain meeting, a second meeting to evaluate on your implementation phase. So how is it going? We need to check it and evaluate on it. So this is a table that helps to evaluate on your defined goals. So you have a goal and action, a due date. Like I said, you have a project owner and a project solver that can be different. And you have a status and a result. So this is the second meeting and the follow-up meetings. Evaluating on your implementation phase is essential. When you're doing this, you need to act on your evaluation, because sometimes you realize that your SMART goal is too complicated, or it cannot be reached. And then you need to adjust your goal or action, because it needs to be feasible, it needs to be smart. And sometimes also you have accomplished your goal. And then it's important to think about follow-up actions or new actions, because like I said, you prioritize your different themes where you would like to work on. But then if you have finalized it, you can go further with the other themes. This last step is just a figure to explain that you have a mission and you need to keep the scale in balance, let's say, with your different plan, do, check, act circles. So that is what I just told you. You prioritize your actions on one or two SMART goals, but you need to take in mind that it's not only about these one or two goals. To reduce AMU, you need to focus on all different kinds of things that you need to improve, because then the mission to reduce AMU will be a balanced process in which the goal will be reached. So this is the explanation of the coaching methodology. Then we go further with the experiences in Belgium and in the Netherlands from the two different projects, from Project NetPoulSafe and Roadmap. And from the NetPoulSafe project, we have made a video, and I would like to share it with you. Therefore, I would share my screen on YouTube. And unfortunately, this video is in Dutch. Maybe you can understand it a bit, but it's just 1 minute and I will explain it to you afterwards in English.
Heb je ooit nog problemen gehad met enterokokken?
Ja.
En wat zijn de zaken daar dat je denkt dat je meest geholpen hebben?
Vooral het spoelen, denk ik, in het begin van de ronde. Meer spoelen.
De waterlijn.
Ja. De waterlijnen eigenlijk, als de keukens fris water hebben, zoveel mogelijk. Want anders, in het begin, zeker in het begin,
zit
de
geen
stilstand,
verbruik op, hè? Ja.
weinig verbruik op.
Ja.
Want dan als je niet regelmatig doorspoelt, wordt dat water warm en dan krijg je maar druk van allerlei soorten van ziekten.
Ja, biofilm en zo.
Ja.
En dus tijdens de leegstand doe je peroxide en dan tijdens de ronde, is er dan ook nog iets in je water of zo?
Ik probeer wel regelmatig na de medicatie, toch wel, als de medicatie gebruikt moet worden, om daar toch ook zeker een peroxide nog eens na te steken. Die mag gebruikt worden tijdens de ronde. En er staat ook nog een ultrason systeem op.
Om echt biofilm weg te krijgen.
Ja.
En hoe dikwijls doe je dat?
Dat staat permanent aan.
Ah.
Dat zit op de waterleiding, zit er een sensor opgebouwd. En dat staat continu aan.
Ja.
De bioveiligheidsstatus is geëvalueerd bij de start en op het einde van het project aan de hand van de biocheck-checklist. Het resultaat geeft een
Okay, this was the video, and for the non-Dutch speakers, you saw on the table the coach together with the farmer in a conversation to try to find out how to improve his enterococci problem in the farm. So they talked about you need to flush your water pipes, you need to prevent your biofilm, and also I don't know what it is in English actually. Peroxide, water peroxide, I think it is.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Yes, thanks. Arthi, do you want to share your screen about the Belgian experiences?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of our tasks was, apart from building these digital tools to make biosecurity measurable, we are also focusing on motivating farmers to implement biosecurity. And to know how to do this, we had listed certain supporting measures, and we are validating or testing them. And one of those measures was coaching. So Belgium as well adapted coaching as a supporting measure to improve biosecurity, and currently the coaching process and the evaluation is ongoing. So for the farms that we have included as our pilot farms where coaching is done, we do the same protocol like Annick mentioned. So we have the plan, do, check, act, and we also have certain SMART goals. Because the duration of this evaluation phase is only 6 months, we don't have any long-term goals, but we do have a lot of short-term goals, which we would list it for the farmers based on the biocheck reports and based on what we visualize in the farm. So, for example, we started coaching in June, and by September, we would like some of the measures to be implemented. So for a certain farm, for example, we thought a hygiene log with a clear distinction between the clean and the dirty zone will be something that can be implemented without much investment. He can use a paint to just draw a line, or a tape, or just a wooden plank or bench to show the differentiation. Sometimes having signboards to avoid visitors and to ask them to park the vehicles outside the gate will be another measure, which is not a very big investment. Rodent control is something that also can be done easily. So these are the short-term goals that we are aiming at. There are also some intermediary goals, and we set it, say, for example, in December 2022, because these are measures that cannot be done when the birds are present in the farm. So we thought that during the next cleaning and disinfection, so the next vacancy period between two flocks, is when the cleaning and disinfection can be improved, because we saw a lot of visible dirt present on the feed and the water lines, and we suggest better to improvise on the cleaning and disinfection, but this is somewhat an intermediary goal. We also asked the farmer to limit the people entering the farm to buy products, because this is also not an immediate it's not an immediate measure that can be implemented. It has to have a transition phase, because he has to set a new space for selling his products, and that needs time. So this is set for a couple of months later. And then there was a farm which had a long-term goal. We suggested to keep or reconstruct in such a way that they have a clear distinction between the clean road and the dirty road. This is because we always want only less harmful vehicles entering the farm through the clean road. So this can be animal supply, it can be vehicles that are not very harmful to the farm and are very or at less risk. Whereas the dirty road is something that would be used just for the purpose of carcass collection, for feed delivery, because these vehicles on a general basis, they visit many farms on a certain day. So it's possible that they can carry infection into the farm. So we always advise on having distinct clean and dirty routes in a farm. As Annick mentioned, we also have the plan, do, check, act protocol, and in our action plan, we made this chart where we say who does what, when it has to be done. And also at the end, we clearly, without scientific terminology, with very, very clear information about why these things have to be changed. So you can just convey it in very simple words to the farmer in a way he'll understand, because not all times farmers are aware of the fact that humans can also transmit diseases. So the hygiene log is very pivotal here. The hygiene log is something that we enter the farm on an everyday basis. We enter the farm and leave the farm through the hygiene log, and it has to be prioritized and given highest attention. And humans entering and leaving the hygiene log must also be equipped with clean clothes, farm-specific boots, gloves, maybe a hairnet, just to avoid contaminating the farm. We also prefer them to be aware of the vehicles that are entering the farm, because they are also very big carriers of infection. And then rodents not only transmit diseases, but they can also cause materialistic damage. They can enter into the feed storage and cause a lot of damage to the feed bags. They can also contaminate the feed bags. And thorough cleaning and disinfection is also very important, because the next flock entering the farm has to also be prevented from catching an infection, because cleaning and disinfection thorough cleaning and disinfection can avoid disease transmission. So in Belgium, we have this map. This map represents the farms that are the pilot farms, and the different color icons are the different kinds of breeders, layers, turkey, and broiler farms that are the farms part of the project and where coaching is ongoing currently. The black dots are not the pilot farms, but they are the surrounding farms where recently avian influenza was tested positive. So this is one of the challenges that we are currently facing with avian influenza around a lot of farms. Our coaching phase is, however, over, but then our evaluation phase is it's very big. It's a very big challenge to revisit the farm and do the evaluation process. However, currently we are in the stage of follow-up, where we trying to make a telephonic conversation to the farmer and trying to revise or make the adjustments. So we want to know if the farmer is how do I say, comfortable with the action plan, if he has started adopting the measures, if he started, and if he suddenly stopped it because of avian influenza. Because with bird flu, more attention is towards the measures that are taken towards bird flu and not on the action plan that we suggest. So we want to know if there's been any disturbance with bird flu on the coaching process. So in the NetPoulSafe project, we are validating coaching. So the first visit with the farmer is over, the biocheck and ADCAR was done. Then we made an action plan because by coaching methodology, and in 6 months' time, we will be revisiting the farms and reevaluating them just to see the trajectory of the farm scores, the biocheck scores, and now also the ADCAR scores. So I come to the end of my presentation here. Thank you for your time and attention. The NetPoulSafe website has a lot of information on biosecurity in poultry production. We have a lot of fact sheets, videos, and podcasts on coaching, on biocheck, on educational materials. We have e-learning courses that are going to be launched in the future. We have summer courses this year. So if you're interested, please do check the website and please register for all these events, because yeah, it's very informative, and with avian influenza around, I think it's going to be very informative for all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will elaborate on the experiences in the Netherlands. I will start with the experiences from the NetPoulSafe project as well, because we in the Netherlands have had involved 14 poultry farmers in coaching sessions. It was with the same plan, do, check, act methodology as Arthi just explained. However, the main difference was that we did this coaching trajectory online. And the main reason for this was that we would like to test how to create more value out of online meetings because of the avian influenza and also during the COVID periods. So This trajectory is not yet finalized, but the experiences so far are positive. And I will not go in detail about the Plan, Do, Check, Act actions we have implemented, because Arthi already explained a bit from the Belgium situation, technically wise. What I do like to explain to you is that we also had a very interesting, well, let's say coaching meeting with 3 farmers, let's say, each time, together with his veterinarian and feed advisor as well. So we had a group of about 10 people. And we were working with the aid of Microsoft Paint 3D on farm zoning. So the farmer got some access to the screen together with the moderator, which was in many cases myself. And together we were drawing the different zonings. So the red zone, the orange zone, and the green zone, and also the important elements of biosecurity. So, for example, the carcass storage, the manure storage, feed silos, egg sales. And then we also added the walking routes of visitors, of the transport, the manure collection, and then other transport. And in this way, everybody saw how the farm was designed and where the high risk elements were on the map. And as we are with multiple people with multiple farmers, multiple advisors and veterinarians, they learned from each other because they saw what works, what does not work, what's interesting for me to implement in my farm and the other way around. So this was a quite interesting session to have online, while people did not need to access other farms, but still had some nice insights in how everybody has organized his farm in terms of biosecurity and animal health. We made a fact sheet as well as a video about this process. So if you would like to learn more about this, you can click on the link of the fact sheet, and I will share this presentation with you later, so you can look at it. Then during the roadmap project, we had also some experiences with the coaching. This was in-person meetings. So we had 4 turkey farms and we visited them during a 1-year period. And I would like to share with you our main findings. And well, there was extra focus on responsible antibiotic use and the relationship between the vet and the advisor in the turkey farmers. However, we experienced that turkey farmers already did a lot to be responsible with antibiotics. So the scope for action was quite limited. However, some farmers did saw more opportunities than the others. And also there was extra focus on what might still help. So for example, feed adjustments, improvement of the water quality, and maybe some changes in the turkey breed. Pain points and difficulties in the sector have been well discussed, which gives rise to sharp reflection. And also part of the action perspectives lies with links in the chain abroad, which was quite challenging to assess during the meetings. And we also concluded that there's already a lot of awareness and effort in this sector in the Netherlands. So lastly, some experiences from a national project. We did the coaching on farm in person in 50 pig farms, 5 visits during a 2-year period. And I would like to share with you some challenges as take-home messages, let's say, because we experienced that planning the appointments was quite challenging because you need to organize a meeting with multiple people. So quite often we planned the meetings long in advance, but you needed to check it, let's say 1 week in advance if the people were still available. And also there were some challenges regarding the people at the table, because quite often there was some changes in the people present and during the project, because sometimes there was a change in vet or in advisor, and then it's about having trust in each other. If you see each other for the first time, it is harder to trust each other and to work on a goal with and share responsibility together about a certain goal. So that was challenging. And also regarding the Plan, Do, Check, Act methodology, follow-up and evaluation are the last two steps, but that are quite, well, the most important steps, but quite challenging to do, because check and act, quite often it is forgotten. So it requires attention, especially during your second meeting and your follow-up meeting. Please take time to check and evaluate on the actions you have set earlier, because otherwise it does not make sense to create your SMART goals and, well, go further with whatever you always do. So keeping on with the plan, do, check, act methodology ensures that you are making steps in reaching your goals.